this trip to the Indo-Pacific got a lot of attention, to say the least, in particular with a stop in Taiwan. While there's strong bipartisan support in the Congress for Taiwan, the White House was not supportive of this trip. Why was that? And why did the delegation still decide to go? Were you confident that the risk level was not going to escalate into a direct conflict with China?
Well, as you know, we're a separate branch of government than the executive branch, and we are called upon to, faithfully observe the Taiwan Relations Act, as well as appropriate any money in connection with that act. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a firsthand understanding of the needs of our friends and, how the money that we've already allocated has been spent. And quite frankly, there's just some meetings you cannot do by Zoom. You have to be in person and you have to collaborate.
So why did you think the White House was not supportive of this trip?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I think at the end of the day, they were also concerned about our safety. That's probably their number one concern. And, we were able to work it out so that we were in very, very good hands with personnel in the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy.
Okay, great. So what was your impression of Taiwan? Any surprises? And how does Taiwan's security, whether it's military or economic security, help America, especially back in Illinois? If you can elaborate on some of the recent legislation, maybe CHIPS Act or others beyond.
Well, let me start with CHIPS Act. I'm glad you mentioned that. That is a piece of legislation that our Taiwanese partners and friends, as well as friends throughout the region, by the way, are very excited about, because it helps to incentivize the manufacturing of semiconductor chips here in the US. And we actually talked about specific promises and commitments by the Taiwanese to invest $20 billion in the manufacturing of semiconductor chips in the US. And our partners in other parts of Asia are similarly very interested. And I'm hoping that some of them will come to Illinois as well. And so I put my salesman cap and tried to pitch them on that. With regard to any surprises or my observations about the Taiwanese people or its government, I have to say I had two observations at least. One is just how economically developed the economy is in Taiwan. It's a robust, vibrant economy. It's a fast-growing economy. It happens to be the sixth largest importer of U.S. agricultural goods, and it's, I believe, among our top 10 trading partners. So that's a big deal for a place that has 23 million people. The second observation is just the commitment to human rights. We had the chance to meet with various human rights activists. We had a chance to visit the prison and the court where people were court-martialed under the time of martial law. For a time, Taiwan was under martial law. And after that time, in which thousands and thousands of people were imprisoned and many were executed, the people of Taiwan committed themselves to never repeating that episode again. And so they have an incredible commitment to human rights and respect for minority communities, including LGBTQ communities. And so that really was a very pleasant surprise.
And I'm sure that's how you can relate to and probably have a deeper understanding why Taiwan or Taiwanese people are resistant to any possibility that an authoritarian regime is going to rule this place. So appreciate your observation.
Yeah, I think that democracy is firmly rooted in Taiwan in a way that, younger generations probably cannot even think of a place that would not have those freedoms: freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom to worship, freedom to be you, whoever you are.
Right.
And, it's a raucous democracy, just like ours or any others. And so in that way, we felt very much at home there.
That's wonderful. Um, a major purpose of this trip is to strengthen U.S. economic engagement with the Indo-Pacific region. And what were some of the concrete things coming out of this trip, if it's not just Taiwan, but other countries?
Well, I mentioned the semiconductor investments with regard to the CHIPS Act, but there's also an interest in enhancing the Indo-Pacific economic framework, also the trade initiative between the United States and Taiwan, which is unique. And I think that these types of frameworks, these types of agreements will help to better integrate that part of the world and the United States into the global economic framework so that each of our countries and people can be more prosperous and our businesses and entrepreneurs can flourish.
Fantastic. I hope you will support the U.S.-Taiwan trade framework, which, unfortunately has to be set aside as a separate framework from the Indo-Pacific economic framework. So in the aftermath of this trip, there seems to be even stronger congressional support for ensuring security in the Taiwan Strait. Even right now, there's another delegation led by Senator Markey currently in Taipei, and there's going to be another one at the end of this month. So what is your thought? Is this going to be normalized, just more congressional delegations to Taiwan? And will there be more arms sales to Taiwan? What's coming, sort of what's in the pipeline, more congressional support?
Well, I think that these congressional visits are just a normal part of what, different people do when they're friends. This is just normal. And I think we just have to consider it normal. It should not be threatening in any way. It's just normal. With regard to additional support, under the Taiwan Relations Act, we are obligated to help Taiwan with its defense, its self-defense. And so I anticipate that we will continue to provide the types of supplies and goods necessary for that particular objective. I was also heartened that our Taiwanese partners are also reorienting their focus in some ways with regard to their island self-defense in light of what's happening in Ukraine. And I think that it's really important to apply those lessons learned in this type of situation. They're not the same. Nobody's saying that they are the same, but you want to make sure that you protect yourself in a way that's appropriate to the threat. Finally, I'll just say this, which is we went in peace, we went in peace. And our goal is for the whole region to be at peace with each other. We want the People's Republic of China and Taiwan to be able to negotiate with each other and resolve their differences peacefully. That is the watchword here above all. Nobody, I think that people on both sides of the straits, we don't have a quarrel with the people on either side of the straits. And indeed, they have lots of relationships with each other in terms of familial ties as well as business ties. So we need to get to a better place eventually. But in the meantime, we will continue to be strong friends of the Taiwanese people.
Last question. Was the trip worth it after all, given the tensions with China and how it put the world on high alert? Do you think it helps Taiwan?
It was 100% worth it. And here's why. If the cost of avoiding provocations from the Chinese Communist Party or the People's Republic of China is to cede control of Taiwan, to isolate Taiwan, to cede control of our travel schedules to the Chinese Communist Party, that's a price we're not going to pay. We have to treat each other with respect, and we have to make sure that we maintain the status quo in the Straits of Taiwan. We have to ensure there's calm and stability, and when congressional delegations visit either side of the strait, the other party should not be able to dictate the terms of those visits or whether those visits happen at all. That's why I think that we have to have a new understanding that we come in peace. We want both sides to resolve their differences peacefully, but under our laws and under our norms, we are going to resist any aggression toward any democracy anywhere. We're going to come to the support, and certainly in Taiwan, that's the case.